but after 6, and this is the April 16th meeting of the Concord Select Board. We have all of our members are present, and we have a quorum. So we will start off with public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to make a public comment? Yes. No, you need your microphone adjusted or a stepladder.
Good.
Yes, identify yourself and speak.
Mary Weinberg, Hillside Avenue. I want to thank you all as a board for passing the real estate tax exemption. When you're all together, something very special. I want to read you a poem I wrote. This is specifically for Henry. It's called Chairman Henry's Residential Tax Exemption Revolutionary Coup. He started out as one. Maybe he could count on two. After that, he was not so sure, but he worked steadfastly through, with hope this most important tax exemption might actually come true. In Concord Town, the residential tax exemption, enacted 1979, Mass General Law MGLC 59, Section 5C, had never even been considered in all this time in Concord, and now, to get it passed, after 44 years, in the year 2023, well, for Concord, it would be quite revolutionary. But Chairman Henry held on tight, didn't know if he'd get a fight, whether that resistance would come from the left or maybe from the right. Just 3 yeas was all it would take. The town's quote-unquote caring for each other's reputation was at stake. To pass, he needed a vote of 3, but it was not clear at the start if that was, quote, to be or not to be. That was the question. All was in place to vote. Would Henry's dream survive? Yes, yes, yes. He not only got the 3 he needed, he ended with all 5. Thank you, Henry, and everybody. I want to read something else that I did not write. A woman named Anne Hunt Browning, who had an artist and writer's retreat that I stayed out in Ashfield, and I thought this was appropriate to what I just read. It's called The Consequences of One's Act. I saw drops of dew on a single blade of grass and touched the uppermost with the feather of a jay. It flowed into the next, and the 2 together joined the 3rd, and so on down the length of that single blade of grass, each drop joining the rivulet in turn until it reached the ground and watered it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mary. That makes this all worthwhile. I said, that makes this all worthwhile. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Can you match that?
I can. No, I cannot match. I absolutely cannot match that. Carrie Rankin, Upland Road, member of the school committee, but speaking here on behalf of myself. Town meeting stands as a crucial democratic process in our town. It serves as a platform for our community to...
Slow down a little bit. I know
Really close.
slow down.
Sure. You want me to start over?
We're slow and deaf.
Sure. Okay. Carrie Rankin, Upland Road. I'm a member of the school committee, speaking here on behalf of myself this evening. Town meeting stands as a crucial democratic process in our town. It serves as a platform for our community to unite, deliberate, and chart the course forward. As a community, we have been engaged in discussions at various levels about enhancing town meetings, accessibility, and inclusivity for all community members. It's evident that individuals who work evenings, lack childcare, or have other commitments can find themselves quickly disenfranchised. I'm pleased that our town is engaging in conversations to address these disparities and look forward to contributing to these dialogues. In the interim, I propose simplifying procedures to accommodate those most easily disenfranchised, including parents. As it stands, the town meeting agenda likely places school-related warrant articles across 2 evenings, posing a significant challenge for parent participation. Parents with young children incur childcare expenses to attend approximately $100 per night. While on-site babysitting is available, it might not be a viable option for parents of young children, like myself, given the late hours of the meetings, which extend past elementary-age children's bedtime, especially on school nights. According to town ordinance, all have a right to attend and be heard. If we uphold this principle, especially during efforts to enhance town meeting accessibility and representation, it's imperative to facilitate parent participation in voting. Therefore, I respectfully request relocating the school agenda items to either earlier on day 1 or all on day 2. I urge the Select Board to consider the town meeting schedule to ensure that all residents, including parents, can engage fully without unnecessary hindrances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question about that? Carrie, have you been able to talk to the town moderator and identify which specific articles you're talking about yet? Or if you want to list them now?
Yes, our chairs have spoken with the moderator and have requested that all 3 of the articles pertaining to schools be grouped together on one night.
Good, because the select board does not have the authority to change it, but the moderator may be able to work with you on it.
Yeah, I think the request would have to come from the select board for it to take place.
I don't think so.
Well, all right, thank you very much.
So here's my statement. Thank you.
Take it under advisement.
Stefan Breda.
Yes. Thank you. Stefan, I can see your yellow, is it your left hand?
I don't have control over the camera, someone else has control.
Okay, so we're not hearing the Zoom meeting, so just keep trying, Stefan, and we'll ask for tech support on that.
Okay,
There,
I'll
okay.
keep talking, and
Yeah, we're
Stefan, we
not
can't
hearing
hear
that.
We're going to get it turned up here in the room. Try again.
Just wait a minute.
There we go.
I am unmuted. Is that good?
It's okay now.
Now
Go
we
ahead.
can hear you. It was just coming through very, very,
We can't see you, though.
No, you can't see me. Someone on your end is controlling the camera. I'm not controlling the camera because the format has
Okay.
changed. Anyway,
We can hear
Stefan
you,
Bader,
though.
7 River Street, and I'm commenting on the wonderful celebration yesterday of Patriots' Day. I had an enjoyable day in the town from the pancake breakfast through the parade in both directions, but the salient point for the Select Board as the Alcoholic Beverage Licensing Authority was that I found that the availability of a beer and some outside tables at the Right Tavern made it yesterday's experience feel a little bit like a German beer garden or just a continental afternoon. And I wholeheartedly encourage the Select Board looking favorably upon future events at the Right Tavern and restoring some of the historical tavernness to it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any other comment?
I just want to remind everybody on the select board that next week is our only chance to approve a comment letter for the Hanscom environmental impact report, so please take a look at it. I think Shannon has distributed an initial draft, and we're going to go over it at our next meeting. Thanks.
Do we have somebody now? Yes? Diane Proctor, please.
Good evening. Thank you so very much. First of all, Terry, thank you for that important announcement you just made. Much appreciated. I wanted to remind people that the League of Women Voters has, for the last 2 Fridays and 1 Wednesday, put together warrant reviews in which comprehensive, detailed discussions about various warrant articles were presented by the various people organizing various warrant issues. Those are available on Minutemen Media Network's YouTube channel and may actually appear on the TV channels as well. If you have any questions about one of these warrant articles or want more detail, this is a wonderful opportunity to really listen to people present fully, not 5 minutes, but sometimes as long as 15 or 20 minutes, in which you can hear not only presentations by the warrant article presenters, but to other citizens in response. So I would urge people to look at those, and I would urge you to urge your neighbors to do so that we can all be well-informed when we head into the town meeting. Thank you for this time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Going back to the Haskell Field issue, I don't know whether all the members of the board are aware that Mary and I had a conversation with an attorney from the Conservation Law Foundation, who is going to be working with us, on comments on the environmental study, and I would hope continuing with us after that, and that's going to be, I think, a very important and powerful resource that we have been able to take advantage of.
Well, that sounds great, Henry. Are you saying then I should send that draft to this attorney?
No,
Will that person be at our meeting?
no, I don't think so. We don't really have any details of the specific participation. I think we agreed that this letter should go to
Okay.
whoever those comments are going to, and whatever we do in terms of the legal analysis on this
Okay.
will be parallel to
Okay.
and supplementary.
Great, and also that reminds me, there's also going to be a letter from HATS, and they want us to review that draft as well, because they're going to vote 3 days after our next meeting. So, well, I'll get both letters to the board.
And I had the opportunity at the ceremony at the bridge, Patriots Day, to experience the interruption of the jets flying over the bridge.
More than once.
And that wasn't a flyover from,
No,
no. So, anyway, so we'll go on to our consent agenda, Mary.
is that it? Okay, good. Any discussion of anything, well, the consent agenda, first we want to take item A, the meeting minutes aren't available, but are there any other comments or questions about the consent agenda before I ask for a vote?
All right.
Seeing
Hearing
none,
none.
move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. That's it.
Okay, now we have some appointments.
Move to reappoint Linda Ferrari of 20 Damon Street to the West Concord Advisory Committee for a term to expire April 30, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move to reappoint Ann Fortier of 150 Old Pickard Road to the Board of Registrars for a term to expire May 31, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
All right. I'm finally getting the hang of this.
Yeah, you are.
So we have a common carrier application. Do we have anybody here to present that?
It looks like Justin at Joseph's Transportation is on Zoom.
It is.
That's correct.
He's up. Yes, can we recognize
Justin?
Justin at Joseph's Trans? Are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Would you like to describe your application?
Sure. So yeah, we've actually, we were supposed to just do a renewal, but I think we made a mistake and did it too late. So that's why we had to put in for a new application. However, we've had this common carrier license, I think dating back to at least 2006. We run the Lexington historical trolley tours for the town of Lexington, and as you folks most likely know, that runs into Concord, as well as we worked with the town of Concord for their pilot program with the in-town trolley service that they had. I don't believe they did it last year, but the year prior.
Thank you. And so I note that,
As is there any questions from the board on this application? I think the application is in the package, is it
It is.
not?
Yeah, along with a memo from Shannon indicating that everything is completed.
So
Right.
if there are no questions or
Well,
comments?
just briefly, will this include going to Logan Airport and some of the other airports around?
We do that, however, that's not what this is for. This is mostly just for the Lexington Concord historic trolley tours that we operate, as well as if that Concord trolley ever comes back, the pilot program that was happening before.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are we ready for a motion
Yeah.
on this?
Move to approve the common carrier livery license for Joseph's Transportation for the remainder of the 2024 calendar year.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. You're all set. All right, so then the next item on the agenda is the calendar of meetings going forward after town meeting. And that is in the package, and this is,
So Henry, I want to make a comment, a suggestion. We have two new people coming on the board, and I don't know, if they have plans to go away or anything like that, and I'm just wondering if we should approve this calendar in a few weeks.
well, my suggestion, especially since our process involves giving people advance notice of meetings and having deadlines for
Right.
submissions of materials, that my thought would be that we, if this calendar is acceptable to the board, that we adopt this, and then if any changes are needed, they can be adopted after we get the new board.
Right, we could do it that way.
And because we certainly need to schedule the first couple of
Right.
meetings anyway on this list.
Right, and I also want to ask, I would prefer moving back to 6:30, but if I'm the only one and everybody else wants 6 o'clock, then I will continue to get here at 1 minute to 6 and rush it here.
Well,
and
that's,
do that.
that's up to the board.
That's right, so
up
I
to the
just want
board,
to,
and I'm,
are we approving the time right now also, or just the
Well, no,
dates?
isn't the time up to the chair? Because I don't think the board approved the move from 6:30 to 6.
No, we didn't.
So it's up to the chair,
Right.
apparently.
Well,
Okay.
some
So-
chairs check with the other members and some,
No.
yeah.
We're not.
All right, so we can figure that out later if you don't
Yes,
want to
yes,
do it tonight.
That's right. Well, I just think that at least we ought to nail down the dates, and at least for the first month.
Right,
And then if the new members and the new board and the new chair want to do something different, it's always something they can do, right?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I like kind of knowing way ahead so that if I'm planning something, I can plan around this.
Right, right. Definitely agree with all
So let's
that.
make this definite until it's changed.
Okay, that's how we do.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I just have a question. The first and third, the first Monday of May is May 6th, and we have May 13 on there. I understand that town meeting is the exact prior week to that, so are we just doing that to, because it kind of,
Town meeting may go to May.
May 1st,
or-
at least.
Well, the 29th, 30th, and May 1st.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
so,
uh, it's up to you, people, because you're the ones who are going to be at those meetings.
yeah, other than that, it made sense, to me. I was just, and we have some time, but it seems to me that the most important one to decide on is kind of how quickly after town meeting are we going to meet for the first time.
And I think the thinking was we'd be exhausted.
Yep,
So,
Okay.
so we pushed it out to May 13th.
yeah, and that makes sense. it
And then we
might
go
lead
to-
us to, because we're already, okay, Yeah.
Then we go to first
then
and
we,
third.
then we're skipping Memorial Day weekend, so it's 3 weeks. Okay.
Okay, we ready?
Move to approve the select board meeting calendar for the remainder of 2024 calendar year as included in the select board meeting packet.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Okay. Then we move on to the updated draft of the MCI Concord Advisory Board charge,
Right.
which has been distributed to all the members of the board. And if people have comments or suggestions on it, we can talk about it. If people think we're not ready to make a decision on it, we can put it forward to our next meeting on the 22nd. So if you like it the way it is, we can go forward with it. If you think it needs further consideration, we can postpone it to our next meeting.
So I'd just like to say that I thought this was very comprehensive, and I could see a lot of work had gone into defining this charge. I did see some nuance of language that made me feel a little more comfortable that this is a select board committee, a select board appointed committee, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And just one minor change, the last bullet under the duties, I think there's just a grammatical,
It doesn't make sense.
it's just grammatical correction there.
Right.
So if we eliminate the words including expansion,
Yep.
and it should read recommends duties and membership if when the advisory board's charge expands.
Expands. Very good.
I think that would help.
Yep.
Otherwise, I thought it was very well done.
One idea I had after I had sent this out was, I wonder if we should include as an ex officio non-voting member, a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee. I was hoping to recruit someone from the Transportation Advisory Committee to be on the advisory board, but that's not working out. So do you think, and they're always invited to come to any meeting. As a matter of fact, I encourage them to come to every meeting and comment, but I'm wondering if we should make it part of the charge. What do people think?
Part of the membership,
Under the membership, right?
yeah.
Well,
I-
I'm not sure what function either ex officio members have if they're merely, not merely, but
Right.
they're members of other committees. I mean, normally ex officio members are like executives or, people who are employees of the town. But what you're saying is that you would like somebody from the Finance Committee to come and watch, and also somebody from the Transportation Committee. Is there any
Exactly.
reason not to have them be members?
This way, they're not voting members.
Is there any reason that they should not be voting members?
Well, the Finance Committee in the charter, they're not allowed to be a voting member of any other committee.
Is that in the charter, or is that APP 10? Because
It's
we-
not APP 10, it's something that's,
I think you're right, Terry.
Yeah.
Okay, that-
I think
then
it
I
has to do with the
understand that.
finance.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I understand why you would want them to be ex officio.
I think it would be great to have input from the Transportation Committee. I think they have a lot of creative ideas.
I do too.
And I also think we had a really good discussion about this last time, and we made a lot of suggestions, and it looks like, Mary, you did a lot of work, and Shannon putting this together, and I think it's a really good job.
Thank you.
And if you want to add Transportation Committee, that's fine with me.
I'd be comfortable with that.
As a voting or non-voting?
I think that I would go with, are we thinking about the Transportation Committee would nominate the person themselves, or,
I didn't
Yes.
think that through.
yeah?
I didn't think about that.
Um,
I want to encourage them to come to the meetings, and I want them to be there and speak
Yeah.
up. But the focus of this is not really, the focus of this advisory board is not really transportation. It's tangential.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, down the road, again, remember, there's always a chance that when this committee expands, which I anticipate it will, we'll have more people that have a more narrower focus of expertise. But at this point, it's pretty general.
Yeah, I mean, there is something about it that introduces an element that's not here already that I haven't really processed yet, so.
Okay.
I think I'm comfortable with it the way it is at the moment.
Okay.
And then, you know, obviously, these are public meetings, so, and there's an opportunity for comment. And I do think that it would make sense to signal to the transportation as well as to, you know, Public Works Commission, and given the wastewater treatment and others to pay attention to this. But, and that's an opportunity for the outreach that I think this group would be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the appointments are still made by the select board.
They are.
And the qualifications that are designated are collective, not individual.
That's correct.
So the board can select anybody that they think would contribute to that,
They can
to
within the limit.
collective,
Right.
the collective qualifications. And so
Right, so you're
Having
saying it could be another bullet point, kind of like urban planning or zoning
or
or
any,
housing. We could put another bullet for
or
transportation.
maybe ex officio members appointed at large by the select board.
Okay.
Then we could appoint ex officio
Whoever we want.
whoever we wanted, which gives us more flexibility. Then we can argue about it later.
Okay.
No, it's always better to argue later than to argue sooner. Okay, so do we hear a motion to adopt this as amended and the comments?
So what is the amendment going to be?
Around the
To add,
grammatical problem at the bottom of the duties, I think.
Oh,
Right.
okay. I thought Henry was adding this other.
I think he was too. I think it
Okay.
was to add
Sorry.
another bullet under how I heard it was, under ex officio non-voting members, put at-large appointees determined by the select board as needed.
That means you can do whatever you
Yeah,
want.
that's good. I like
Fine.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right. So, we ready to go?
Yeah, I don't have my motions here. Somebody want to make that motion for me, please? Oh, no, I do have
Sure.
it. Go ahead.
Move to approve the MCI Concord Advisory Board charge as included in the Select Board meeting packet and amended from the discussion we just had.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Then
Thanks,
we-
Mary. This is really great.
All right, then, moving right along, we are now, it looks like we do have time, and plenty of time, to talk about Select Board member speaking assignments at town meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I talked to the moderator, and she said that when the various articles are introduced, she will indicate that they have or have not been, or that the Finance Committee and the Select Board have or have not recommended affirmative action. So the people at the meeting will at least know what our recommendation is. So then the question is, sometimes there is discussion that comes up under various articles, and we may want to have somebody on the board who was prepared to speak for the board as to why we took the action that we did or didn't take. So, and I picked out a few that might fall into that category, but maybe the best thing to do is to just have everybody speak for, just volunteer for various articles.
Did the moderator allocate a certain number of minutes to select boards on certain articles?
I believe that she,
2 or 3?
there were allocations of time, but I don't know.
Which
Here
one?
is the, here's the list with the times.
Okay, keep going.
Are those the speakers or?
The speakers, yes.
Yeah.
If I may,
Yes,
from
thank you.
the, that meeting, I do recall the moderator saying that anytime the select board wanted to comment, that it would be provided the time, and I think she said 2 minutes,
2 minutes.
Anytime.
for any article.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Well, but that doesn't mean we have to
Doesn't mean you have to.
take that 2 minutes.
right.
Okay,
So,
got it.
so.
What were the 2 or
let's-
3?
I was trying to remember if she said 2 or 3. I think she
I
said 2.
think she said 2.
Okay, minutes.
Minutes.
I thought you meant articles.
Oh,
So how do you want to,
Well,
I
what
mean,
we've done in the past is, if someone has a liaison assignment,
Yes.
like, for example, I've been going to the DPW meetings, so I know something, a little bit about the stormwater, number 16, and the NAGOG and PFAS, number 17.
so maybe we could just go down.
Right, we should
Go
just
down the
go down.
list and we'll make a decision on each one, probably without much debate.
Okay?
Okay, so,
So I guess,
the first one is Article 4.
yeah, 4, 5, and 6 are personnel board articles. I'm the liaison there. I think it's unlikely to be necessary to comment on 4 or 5. I'd be curious to know whether anybody thinks that it would be, the personnel bylaw updates obviously are substantial, and I think that the personnel board will do a good job presenting that on their own, but I would be prepared to make a comment if we thought it would be helpful.
Perfect.
Okay, so we put
perfect.
down Mark for 4, 5, and 6.
Okay,
All right, then.
So you anticipate not taking the whole 3 minutes, right, Mark?
2 minutes.
2 minutes,
Two
and
minutes, 3
no, and I would expect that I would only comment on Article 6 if it seemed like it was
Okay,
going to
good.
be
Great.
useful to do that.
Mhm.
All right, then we have 7, I assume.
Well, I don't know what to, right now, I'm the FinCom liaison, but I just became that a month ago. Well, you know, I don't anticipate that we're going to be speaking on this anyway.
Which one?
Well,
are you talking
so
about? 7?
7 we have listed as report at town
Actually,
meeting.
we don't even know what's in 7 yet.
Exactly.
Well, then we could, we're highly qualified to have an opinion.
This is just
Yeah.
administrative, there's no
Yeah.
reason to.
Okay.
But number
and
8, we might want to,
The town budget,
yeah.
okay, well, who wants to take that beauty on?
Well, Carrie will be there.
Yeah,
Carrie, do you want the help? Do you want help from us on this one, or do you?
I mean, I think it's always nice for the select board to comment in support of the budget. The school committee will certainly be commenting in support of the school budget. I'm trying to get as far
Well,
away from this as possible.
I would be happy
I
to do
think,
that.
I think that would be, it would be
I
appreciated.
think the chair should do that, yeah,
Great,
that's good.
Move the speaker towards Megan.
All right, so that's 8. Capital improvement and debt plan is the same.
So-
Okay,
What do you think, Carrie, about the number 8, the capital improvement? Do you,
No, that's not,
I would say that is also worth a comment in
Great.
support from the
Okay.
select board.
Okay,
Okay, so then the, I think the next two are completely administrative, aren't they?
yes.
Okay, then and so is the opioid settlement.
Yes.
And okay, then we have the funding for the public safety for the 250th.
Right. What do you think? You're the liaison, Henry.
Okay,
Do you think that requires a comment from us, or do you think?
no, I don't think so, but
Okay,
if it
let's just
requires
keep
one,
going.
it will be me. Free cash is not,
Withdrawn.
so that's
Okay.
being withdrawn,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
senior means,
Is that on the consent calendar?
yes, it is, okay, it is so far. But we were warned by the moderator that things might be pulled
Right.
off,
Right.
and then there would be discussion of them.
I'm the liaison to the Board of Assessors, so I guess I should get
Okay,
ready to
that's
say
Mary,
something about
okay.
that. That would be hard for me to do,
Hard?
yes.
Well, hard is not a
You
problem,
probably
is it?
won't have to do anything, but,
Okay.
Hard is normal. Okay, stormwater enterprise.
right, so 16, 17, and 18, if the select board have to speak, I will take those.
Okay,
Good.
that is, okay, Terry. The Minuteman school budget? Any comment?
I don't think that requires a
Okay.
statement.
All right, and the school district budget?
That's you.
It's me?
Yep.
Thank you. And the amenities building is off. Middle school naming, that's,
That's Mark.
that's
That's
Mark.
Sure.
Do you want to do that, Mark?
Yeah, do you guys want to see the comment on that?
Hmm?
Do you
No.
want to see the comment?
Mark. the
Well,
22.
there's one thing that I think we might have to discuss, which is if the select board are asked a position on whether to take paper ballot or not,
Mm-hmm.
I think we should discuss that and have a position ready because, as a board, because I think we're going to be asked.
Actually, I think we're asked to put forward a motion.
Yeah, okay, well,
Okay.
So it's
fine.
both.
So
It's
is
both.
that on our agenda next week maybe or something?
Is it?
No,
No?
Should we discuss it now?
I mean, it could be.
It's not on our agenda, yeah.
Well, taking position on articles is on our agenda,
No,
so
it's speaking of some.
speaking
Well, but the
assignments.
agenda for next week is not closed.
Okay,
I think we really have to be ready on that one. We better
Okay.
discuss it. and-
Okay,
'cause
so
I
we're
don't
gonna,
know.
okay,
what
so
we're
we,
gonna do.
so we're
Paper
gonna
ballot.
do
Okay,
for
okay.
422, agenda.
And that's the part you might have
on,
to speak on.
yeah,
On paper ballot.
Wait.
The only issue is on the paper ballot, right?
Right,
Because the,
That's right.
that's right,
because the board has already taken a position on
That's
it.
right.
that's right.
Okay.
I would like to see the final, I understand there's a new motion on this article.
Oh,
No, we're being asked to, well, there's two things. We're being asked to consider moving a motion for a paper ballot. And then assuming that either if we do it or someone else does it, we should discuss what our position would be on that. Did I get that right?
yeah,
That's
yes.
beautiful.
I understood that, I was just saying,
Okay.
in addition,
Yeah.
I understand there's a new motion. There's been two motions that I've previously seen, draft motions for this particular article. I understand there's a third one,
What are the other two?
which,
I think that we at the rehearsal, we had one motion, which was a slight modification of the original one, but it had, does anybody have it up on, Megan, do you have it? The motion from the meeting with the moderator?
mhm.
So are you saying, Linda, that we voted on something that has changed?
you know, just a slight wording change, yeah.
So,
So the first change I was aware of, moved from urge, if you remember, it was urge the select board, the
Yes.
first one. The second one I saw said ask that the select board
School committee.
would ask the school committee, yes.
Okay.
And now I understand there may be a third draft, and that's
So
what
my
I'd like to know what that
suggestion
is.
is that we have this discussion on Monday. We discussed this whole article. What is the real motion going to be?
Yep.
You know,
Okay.
do
That's a
we
good-
need any
okay.
kind of reconsideration and et
Good,
cetera, et
good,
cetera?
good
Okay.
idea.
and I'll tell you, in order to make that simple, I'll make sure that I have that, and we'll circulate both the motion and proposed language for a
Thank you.
statement
Great.
Article 20, the Article 22.
in preparation for that
All
next
right,
week.
so we're
Thank you.
punting for now. CPS operating and capital budgets.
I
Yes, you're on for those, Henry?
I don't think, in the interest of time, the CPS is that guideline. I don't think we'll need to speak to
No, we
that.
probably don't need to
And the
speak.
capital budget is,
Right. We probably don't need anybody to
we
speak.
probably don't spend a lot of time preparing.
Okay. So then stabilization fund is no motion. Town meeting study committee,
So that's a jump ball, because we don't have a formal
Right.
liaison to that at all, but I also think that there's something to be said for weighing in on this.
Yeah, and we have 4 articles that have to do with town meeting.
Yeah, I think maybe one comment that kind of positions our thinking on all 4 of them might make sense.
well, are you saying that we should speak in favor of the appointment of the committee and then refer the other specific proposals, or to say that we think that those other specific proposals should be considered by the committee rather than being voted on by the town meeting?
No, because we didn't
We
vote
already-
it that
We already
way.
voted on those.
We did.
We did.
Yeah, well, I agree with Mark. I think we're going to have to speak very briefly on these 4 articles, whether it's one statement or 4 statements, or, I don't know. I think it would be good to have one statement, but the problem is, we don't have a uniform statement on, I mean, we're on no action on one of them, we're 3 to 1 to 1 on another one. You know, we're unanimous on number 26, so it's hard to make it all into one statement.
Yeah. I certainly would be willing to make a statement on Article 26.
26, the study committee, okay?
Correct.
All right,
And I would be okay with being silent on 28 and 29.
28 and 29,
But-
we could,
But if other people feel like...
none,
Yeah.
none,
I think on 27, we were pretty clear that the risks to effectively establishing the town budgets in an orderly way are really substantial with that proposal. And I think that we need to express that.
So are you volunteering to do 27? That was
I-
pretty articulately said.
I would volunteer to do that.
All right,
27.
okay.
27. Okay, that's Mark. Okay, 28 is none. 29 is none.
30 will be on the consent agenda.
Okay,
Oh, wait a minute, I thought Mary volunteered to do 28 and 29.
No, I said to be silent.
silent.
You just said-
I put it down as
She
none.
volunteered to be
I
silent.
Oh,
volunteered that we
I
should not, I just had an
Keep
opinion
out of it.
that we should keep out of this.
Okay,
Okay.
Keep
Got
at
it.
it. All
Okay,
right.
so then there is the paper bag item.
That's on the consent agenda.
Okay, that's on the,
Some of these are very non-controversial, so I don't think
Yeah.
it's important that we have an opinion
Right.
on everything.
okay, no, but it just, okay, so what about town goals, et cetera, 31.
31, is that on the consent
Oh,
calendar?
that's a climate action committee. I don't think it is.
No, it isn't.
And I would be prepared to talk to it, although I think we could,
This is non-controversial.
yeah, I think we could just have the moderator
Okay,
read
yeah.
out a recommendation.
I don't- we
And the,
have-
A
and
lot
I-
of these are if necessary kind of speakers.
Yeah, most of the, I think almost all of them
Right,
are if
right.
necessary.
So we're going to leave it up to her whether she in fact calls
Well,
on us?
no,
or
what might
do we do?
happen is a citizen might say, you know, I want to hear what the select board's opinion is, and then we get up and speak, but other
I
than
hope
that.
that happens.
So, I mean, so we have to have somebody who can stand up
Yeah.
and say,
Yeah.
that's me.
But there are some that I think we should want to speak at.
Yes,
So-
Right,
they
and I
are.
think Carmen will need to know which ones we.
I agree.
Well, I think so far it's only 26 and 26 really, that we
What
really,
about 22?
and 22, that's
22.
right. And the others are just if somebody,
Okay, let's keep going, there might be more.
okay?
Well,
I thought we
I
said
think that 27 that we talked about is really problematic, and I think we should
Okay.
actually express why we
Okay.
recommend no
Okay,
action on that.
So we're going to ask, okay,
Well, 22, 26, and 27, we're definitely speaking.
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so that's,
We're up to 31. What did we decide on 31?
31
Mark.
is a climate action committee, and I'll be prepared if necessary.
But we're not asking to speak.
Right.
Not
Okay.
unless anybody's feeling really strongly about it.
Very good. Fossil fuel-free demonstration.
Same thing. I think we could just ask the
It's on the consent.
consent
it's a-
calendar, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you. What about, well, this one is withdrawn, but when we get to the special town meeting,
Yeah.
perhaps one of us should step up, and that would be me.
Okay.
okay, I guess
On the
on,
revised article, the Article 1 on the special town.
So
meeting.
we're expecting no motion on Article 33 at all?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
and 34 is the MBTA zoning, I guess that is something on,
That is me. I'm on the liaison, and I think this is one we should definitely speak to.
I agree.
and who's the liaison?
Me.
Okay, Mary. Are you for or against?
I'm for. We voted unanimously. We voted unanimously.
You mean I agree?
You did.
Okay, and the two-family, same?
I don't think we need to speak on that. I'll be
Okay.
ready, but I
Okay.
don't think we will have to.
All right, so the,
And the next two
are also routine?
on the consent agenda, thank
Yep,
you.
okay. And then the cell tower at the dump. No, 750, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, we haven't taken a position on
That's right.
these two yet.
That's right.
I did go to the Public Works meeting, and they had a long discussion on these two. And I will tell you that on 39, the Public Works Commission is going to recommend no action because they don't have any room there.
Yep.
To turn around a truck or whatever, so they can't fit it. And we can go over that when we discuss it and take our position. So I guess I could speak on that one if I have to, but I hope not to.
Okay, good.
On
Same
what,
one-
on the, this is 39.
Well, on 38, they didn't have any problem, but I'm not, since we haven't even taken a position yet, I don't know if, I have no idea what I would say yet. I don't know what our position is.
Right.
So
Okay.
when are we going to have the discussion about what our position is?
We're going to have a meeting right before town meeting.
Okay.
No, what about Monday?
Can we do it Monday?
Why not?
We can continue
Okay.
this discussion.
Okay.
I think we should do all the articles Monday that we
Yeah.
haven't taken a position on
Okay,
yet,
that's fine.
if we can.
Yeah,
No,
I'm not
that's-
sure what's going to change about the information that we have in front of us between
Well,
now and
does
then.
Well,
nothing,
this whole public works thing I can go over.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be
Maybe
appreciated.
No, you're
Something will
right.
change
So we'll
at
do
the
it the
schools.
22nd. Okay, what about 39?
39, I thought that was Terry.
Well,
Ter-
I'll
Terry.
talk about 39, but, and maybe 38, but let's have our
Got
discussion
it,
and
okay,
see.
good. Okay, what about CPC?
Who's the liaison for CPC?
I am, and if needed, I could speak to that.
Great.
What? Linda?
Linda's the liaison, and she will if needed, but you're not requesting. That you don't want to have, if needed.
All right,
Well,
task
well,
force.
actually, then I have a question on 38 and 39. I'm thinking, those are if needed.
That's right.
All right,
I
good.
think they're all if needed, oh, except for the ones that we have
Right.
circled.
We've got 4 that were specifically requesting time, 22, 26, 27, 34.
Right, great.
34.
And so I thought we had talked about Articles 6, 8, and 9,
If needed.
If needed.
if needed. So that's going to be
Oh,
tricky.
no, 8 and 9, you're right, definitely we're speaking on 8 and 9.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we want to support Carrie on those, that's right.
That's right, good
Right.
catch.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult for Carmen if we are giving her a list that says if needed.
Yeah, so what we'll do on Article 6 is I'll confer with the chairs of those personnel boards and see what they've got in, by way of presentation, and then I'll come back next week and say whether or not I think we should speak on it. So we'll be clear one way or the other whether we're going to plan to speak or not.
Okay, 41?
That's
No,
withdrawn.
okay.
That's no motion.
Okay.
I don't think any of the others require a select board statement.
I think most of them are on the consent calendar.
Well, no, wait a second. Where's the stormwater improvement fund? That's 48. That was what, is that one we want to definitely talk to? Terry,
Mhm.
that's you,
Which one?
48.
Stormwater,
48?
No,
Oh, that's
Yeah,
sewer.
sewer.
Where's stormwater?
stormwater utility.
stormwater was 16.
Oh, we already did it. Okay, sorry.
So we were going to say something about
And-
that.
That
That's
is, are we going to
Or do you want,
speak on
That's a big
16?
thing.
That actually is a big deal. And actually,
Okay, so the
And that's-
question,
and
the
that-
question in front of us is, do we want to request time to speak to 16? Terry, what do you think?
yeah, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
And then 17 will be if needed? What do you think about 17? Okay.
Yeah.
And 18's on the consent calendar, not
So-
worried about that. All right, 16 I will definitely speak. 17 if needed, okay?
Yeah, I think 17 is a lot of money. A lot of money.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
And,
So what are you saying?
well, there's two things about that. One is, it's a lot of money, and a good chunk of it has nothing to do with PFAS. It's the water treatment facility that's been
All right,
done before.
that's not exactly right. I thought that was true.
Yeah.
It turns out that, because I asked this question at the last Public
Yeah.
Works meeting a few days ago, the NAGOG, because the environmental regulations were changed about 2 days ago,
Yeah,
and Alan's been anticipating that,
yeah,
if we really want to get NAGOG online, we're going to have to meet those very strict PFAS regulations. So those two things are interacting, the PFAS and the NAGOG, and you can't do one without the other now.
yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that this is an important project, and I think we're supportive of it, and I think that it's a good idea to say so in front of town meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
and that is,
So we're good.
all right, so we're requesting time on 8, 9, 16, 17, 22, 26, 27, 34, and that's it.
That's it?
Okay,
Okay.
good. We still have 3 minutes before the opening of the...
Who's going to talk to the moderator about? Thank you.
We have to flip the table for the public hearing, so.
Right.
Flip the table.
What do you mean,
Okay.
you mean like turn it
So
over?
we're- Whatever.
You mean turn it over?
All right, so we can, so actually, our meeting, though, our meeting as a board will be reconvened as the public hearing, right, on the special town meeting, and so we can adjourn this meeting, right?
You can, but you do have one hand raised. in
With
the
what?
Zoom.
Oh, we have a public.
Oh, we have a
comment.
hand. Oh, Ms. Proctor, we recognized your yellow hand. Hello?
Diane?
Oh, the hand went down.
I didn't mean to have my hand up. I apologize to everyone. Excuse me.
That's
All
okay.
right,
Okay, so we'll
okay,
take a quick break while we set up for the public hearing. Is
but
that
we
okay?
are, we
So
will,
we're leaving. What do you want us to do? Just tell us what,
This meeting.
we're
yes.
ending this meeting, so we have a...
move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we stand adjourned.
There's another one online?
No, there's 7. There's 7.
Okay. All right, I'll take roll call in
Okay,
case somebody else is there and not visible.
okay, so
Okay,
we now appear to have a quorum. D, if you want to call the roll for the
Right,
finance committee.
thank you. Suresh? Peggy Briggs? Kathy Kukalo? No? Eric? Yes.
Present.
Thank you. John Garofalo? No. Greg Gurriello? No. Amrith, I know is a no. Don?
Present.
Thank you. Lindsay? No. Dee Ortner? Yes. Parshar? No. Carlin? Present. Thank you. Christine?
Here.
Quasi? No. And Lois?
Here.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have a quorum.
Are we good?
We're
Okay,
good.
So you have a
Finance committee.
quorum, and you've called your meeting to order, and Mary, why don't you call the roll for the select board?
Well, we're all here, so we can just take credit.
Huh?
I will
We're all
call.
here?
Sorry.
All here present?
Ms. Escobedo?
Present?
Myself, Mary Hartman here. Mr. Dane?
Here,
Ms. Ackerman?
Here.
Mr. Howell?
Present.
okay. So we're here, so we're ready to go, so I am going to call to order the joint Select Board and Finance Committee Special Town Meeting Public Hearing on Article 1, In-Town Utility Scale Battery. And so, do we have somebody to present on behalf of the light plant? Jason, please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Jason Bulger. I'm the interim director of the Concord Municipal Light Plant. I'll be presenting on Article 1 for the special town meeting. This article seeks to borrow or have the authorization to borrow up to $10.4 million to build a utility scale battery somewhere in the town of Concord, along with design control systems and associated items. I wanted to point out that this is ratepayer money, not taxpayer money. And as you'll see, the goal is that this would actually save ratepayers money, not cost them money. Next slide, please. Everybody in Concord is served on one of two transformers. You'll see here on the map, there's a blue and a green section. Everybody in Concord is in one of these two areas, and that is where you're drawing your electricity from. The blue side happens to be our solar saturated side, the side where we actually have a lot more solar than we have demand at some portions of the year. The W.R. Grace site that has about 4.5 megawatts of solar is on this side of town. And we have issues in the shoulder months on days just like today where you have a nice sunny day, but very mild temperatures where people are not running air conditioners or heaters, and the load that's on the grid is very low. This is important because the power protection devices that exist to make sure that your transformers don't blow up and things don't catch on fire need a certain level of minimum load so that they can respond quickly if there's a problem. So for instance, a car hits a pole, it creates a problem. Right now, there's devices that will shut power off to make sure things don't blow up. These need a minimum load. What you'll see here is a graph on the right-hand side of the chart that shows one of these shoulder month days in April of last year. The green line represents the minimum load on that day, which is a little bit above 2 megawatts. MCI Concord has been announced to be closing June 30th, and what you'll see below that is the blue line, which represents the load that MCI Concord had on that day. Now, the pink line on this shows one single customer who's interested in adding solar to the grid that would reduce their consumption on that particular day, and you'll see that we are approaching the 1 megawatt line, which is kind of the danger area where those power protection devices don't operate correctly. So we're trying to steer clear of that issue, which you can see the solar in orange and the load in blue that drops. Next slide, please. We've also seen a steady increase in the amount of solar in town, of rooftop solar. So we have the two big solar installations, one at the landfill, one at the former W.R. Grace site, but we also have a lot of rooftop solar. A lot of Concordians wish to add solar, and it's actually part of our climate action plan to add more solar in town. So this is a good thing. We've seen a 1.15 megawatt increase over the past 3 years. The Inflation Reduction Act is actually expected to increase the amount of solar requests because people are going to be getting a handsome reduction in their solar and battery systems because of the money allocated for that. And we wish to continue to be able to add solar, and we find ourselves not in that situation right now. Next slide, please. So as we seek to address this issue, we have three goals. Number one, that is the primary goal, and this is above everything else, is to protect the integrity of the electrical distribution grid so that everybody has reliable power and we don't have any issues with safety. The next priority is to allow Concordians to continue to add solar onto the grid. We were looking to originally borrow a lot of money for solar, and we will continue to pursue projects like that, but it's even better when everybody wishes to pitch in and spend their money to add in-town solar. The third goal is to reduce the peak load that Concord has. We are assessed a rate for our electricity based on the peak load of the previous year, and reducing that peak load even just a little bit will save us a huge amount of money on our electricity for the following year. And when we do that, we also avoid running very dirty peaker plants, which are electricity plants that are usually diesel generators that need to provide power during those peak moments. By shaving the peak, we save those emissions and we save ratepayers money. Next slide, please. So what are the solutions? Can we actually just cut down on the amount of solar that we have? Well, first of all, that's a little counterintuitive, right? Because we want to generate solar, we don't want to turn it off. But second, our current contracts don't allow us to turn off the power for those solar sites unless there's an actual emergency, not just that we are concerned about the power protection devices. So that would mean that, for instance, if there's a dangerous situation where there's a transformer on fire at one of these sites, we'd have to then turn it off. But because they both make solar electricity that we have to pay for per an agreement, and they mint renewable energy certificates that they sell on a market, they have a lot of incentive to keep those plants open as much as possible. Another solution that we've explored, and this was one of our long-term goals in order to address this issue, was something called the metering domain, which would allow us to push power back to Eversource at our substation. This is still a goal, something that's being worked on. It requires a SCADA system, which is basically a computer system that monitors all of these switches, relays, transformer power in real time. But that's at least 2 years away because of the changes that are required on our network and because of the changes required with our agreement with Eversource. That leaves a battery storage device or an energy storage device, which is capital intensive, but will likely pay back for ratepayers. I'd like to point out that other MLPs like Groton and Holyoke, Holden, Wellesley have all either built or are building large battery projects to achieve some of these peak shaving goals. Next slide. So why are we doing this now, and why are we doing this in this format with the special town meeting? MCI Concord is closing in just a couple months now. We know that their load is going to reduce drastically, and they are on that blue side of the map on this bus where we have solar saturation issues. That's going to drop our cushion to a very uncomfortable level and not allow us to pursue any further solar on the network and even have concerns about the existing power load. They do share a wastewater treatment facility with the farm, the Northeast Correction Center across the street from CMLP, which means that their load probably won't drop to 0 on June 30th, but we do expect a big drop on June 30th, and it will likely continue to drop once they figure out what to do with that wastewater treatment plant. And even if we do redevelop the MCI Concord property, it's likely that we're going to add a lot of solar, because that's one of our town goals, is to add solar on projects. So it will likely not increase the load or demand a lot on our grid. And then as to why now, if we start this project now, there's a good chance that it will be done in the next year. If we wait a year, that's going to be a 2-year solution, and that's too late for this issue that we have. Next slide, please. When we talk about a battery, there's 2 numbers. There's the megawatts, or the power, and then there's the megawatt hours, or the energy. So think of energy as like the number of batteries that you have, and power is the absolute max that those batteries can discharge or charge at any given time. So we're recommending a 5 megawatt, 15 megawatt hour battery. It's just a little bit under that because of some of ISO rules that say that anything 5 megawatts or bigger, you have to be registered as a generator. So it's going to be a little bit lower than that. But at this level, that would allow us to either discharge for 3 hours the full 5 megawatts, or a longer period of time at a slightly lower megawatts. The other thing I'll mention is that energy is what increases the cost of the battery. The power can be increased pretty inexpensively. Next slide. So why a bigger battery? Why are we not asking for a $3 million battery or $5 million battery? So first of all, a bigger battery is going to better manage the solar saturation issues that we have. If you remember that peak, we saw 2 hours at the very highest, but we saw 4 hours at a very high level. So a bigger battery is going to make sure that we get through that curve where we address the solar saturated times of the day. It's also going to allow us to continue to expand solar at a much higher rate. Small battery, a much smaller increase in solar. The town has a goal of 60 megawatt hours by 2030 in the Climate Action Plan, and we currently have 0 today. The middle school solar project will add about 4 megawatt hours toward that goal, but that will be the very first project. So a bigger battery is going to get us more progress toward that goal. It's also going to give us a little bit cheaper per megawatt cost because of economies of scale. We're expecting about a $2.6 million credit from the Inflation Reduction Act on this battery, and that number goes up with the size of the battery. So the bigger the battery, the more the federal government is going to pay for it. And finally, a bigger battery is going to result in better cash flow and then a bigger savings for ratepayers. Next slide, please. So when it comes to financials, I'll spend a little bit of time on this slide. What you're going to see here in the lower right-hand corner in that graph is the cash flow expected for the battery. The very first year, we expect it to be a little bit negative, but every year after that, it's going to be cash flow positive. And I'll go in a little bit greater detail about where we get those numbers. But if you take a look on the left-hand side, you'll see what we expect the cost to be. We expect the battery itself will be about $9 million, and then there's cost there for engineering that's required, site prep, shipping, installation, and other balance of plant. We do expect that we're going to hire a firm to actually dispatch this battery, because remember, the way that this saves money for ratepayers is we hit those peaks, and that requires people who are studying the ISO market, looking at weather conditions, looking at all these variables, and guaranteeing an accuracy so that we know that our ratepayers are going to actually save money. We are going to be putting a battery control system in with this so that the more data we get, the smarter it can be in sort of an automatic programming mode. So for instance, as we add advanced meters that have real-time data about what our customers are using data, as we add the SCADA system, we're going to be able to take all of that input and put it into this control system so that as we add more batteries and more solar, it will act as a true microgrid controller. At the very top, I just wanted to point your, or draw your attention to that. So, in our very initial models, we've done this roadshow a few times now. In our initial models, people said, well, what interest rates are you looking at, and what what WAC or discount rate are you guys using? And we had been using a 5% discount rate, but we show here all the way up to a 12% discount rate, and even a loan at 4%, which is what our CFO advised us to use for a very conservative model. You'll still see that $3.1 million annual cash flow for that, or net present value rather, at the end of 20 years with a very conservative model. Next slide, please. So this is going to be the impact to the ratepayers. So we expect that in year one, you're going to see a little bit of an increase on the average monthly bill. This is an average customer. It's rated our median of 883 kilowatt hours per month. But every year after that, you're going to see significant savings that increase until the loan is paid off, and then they drastically increase in 2040 when the loan is paid off. I'll also mention that the reason it jumps so significantly from year one to year two is that we plan on taking the IRA credit and actually paying that toward the principal. So basically, we'd probably be a short-term borrowing initially, and then we'll borrow the full amount the second year because it'll be at a much lower amount once we get that credit back. I'll also mention that if you look at this chart, we're expecting that the current peak shaving market will kind of be what it is today, and that might not be the case, because as more people add batteries to the grid, they're getting better at playing the game of peak shaving, which is driving the peaks to weird times of the year and makes it harder to hit the peak and save ratepayer money. So we also ran a very conservative model to say, what if we only got revenue for 10 years? What if years 11 through 20 was completely wiped out for revenue? We'd still be $640,000 in the positive for this battery system. So we feel very confident that this is going to save ratepayers money. Next slide, please. So these are the assumptions that went into that model. So basically a 15-year loan with a 4% borrowing rate. The IRA credit is used in year 2. We are going to replace the inverters in year 10. They have about a 10-year lifespan. The battery is dispatched by a third party, and you can see some other assumptions that we make here. I wanted to point out in the model, there was maybe would be a question about the revenue model. And so I can just speak to that very briefly. So basically, we take the estimates from what E&E, Energy New England, has been getting from other clients who actually have batteries installed today, to take the both regional and local network system forecasts and the reduction in peak of what those would be, plus ICAP, and then we multiply that with sort of an accuracy guess. Bigger battery, higher accuracy; smaller battery, lower accuracy. And then we plot that out for 20 years. So that the revenue models are used with real world data that other MLPs and E&E clients are seeing with their batteries today. Next slide. So some of the alternatives that we've explored, just to talk about, and again, what we're going to recommend to the Light Board, if we get the approval of this Article 1 at special town meeting, is that we go through an exhaustive process to make sure that this is the best possible option for the ratepayers in Concord to address this issue. But we've looked at curtailment, like, is there another way? Let them generate the electricity on these solar farms, but somehow get rid of it. Unfortunately, that's both dangerous and illegal, so we can't do that. We have 2 transformers. One of them has a serious solar saturation issue. The other one has a less serious issue. Can we somehow combine them so that the issue gets a little bit better? Unfortunately, we can only tie them together for very brief periods of time, and we have to have an engineer monitor them while it's in that mode because of the dangerous harmonic situation that can result in the destruction of a transformer at that time. Can a third party build the battery? Yes, and this is a model that about half of the MLPs that I mentioned have used so far, because they're not so worried about solar saturation yet, although they're just starting to think about it, but they are much more concerned with, hey, can we get some of this free IRA money? Can we build a big battery and save our ratepayers money? And that's why they're doing it. So we've talked to several third-party people who build batteries and solar for communities and put up that initial capital investment. But what we found is that our priorities are reversed. Our number one priority is grid stabilization. We want to make sure that the power system is always running. And then secondarily to that, we want to get as much revenue as we can. The priorities of a third party would be flipped, right? So they want to make money as much as they can. And if there are any ancillary uses, then they might be okay with that, but we'd have to pay for them. Regardless, we've still talked to 2 companies and had some really promising conversations with people who are at least open to looking at the financials to see if it's something that could work. If it is, and it would reduce our risk and lower the capital request, then we're absolutely willing to entertain that idea. But all of the conversations we've had to date have not resulted in an affirmative, yes, we can do that, and that's our business model. It's sort of a, we've never considered that before, let's see if we can run some numbers and make it work someday in the future. So we feel pretty confident that this is a reasonable request for town meeting to request the $10.4 million for this battery. We've looked at adding load. We've actually had some interesting conversations with some Concord businesses about finding ways to increase load during these times, because that would obviously, reduce the need for us to dissipate the solar or store it. And we've had some pretty positive conversations, but they're in their very early stages, and these are many-year conversations. We basically have to guarantee them some sort of tariff that would work for them, incentivize them to plan long-term capital, to invest in infrastructure, to then spin up the demand. And we'd have to guarantee that that demand would fit in the narrow window that we needed. So it's not something at this point that's likely going to address the issue. And that was my last slide. So next slide is just the article again, and this just summarizes the request. So I'm happy to take any questions from the board and the committee, and thank you.
Do we have any questions from the members of the Finance Committee on this?
Maybe we'll start down there with Colin.
Thanks, Jason, for that presentation. I don't have a problem with this article. What I'm concerned about is the cost of solar, given our town goals of 60 megawatt hours of battery storage. Here we're seeing 15 megawatts for $10 million. You could add another 5 megawatts through the middle school. That's 19 megawatts. In 6 years, we're trying to reach 60. So are you telling me that a battery storage to reach the 60 megawatt hour goal for the town is going to cost us another $30 million? Again, I don't have problems with this particular article. My concern is looking forward. I know it's coming out of the ratepayers, but that's the other pocket we have. Is this something that you, as on the light board, are thinking about? Can we afford this goal?
Yeah, well, let me say something, and then I'll ask Brian Folds, the chair of the light board, if he wants to weigh in. But the first thing that I would say is that when we look at new solar development now, we require batteries and big batteries. So, and we require a certain amount of battery size based on the size of the solar. So what we would anticipate is that as both we, the light plant, and we Concordians and businesses who add solar, we continue to do that, we would be adding batteries as we go, so that it wouldn't be a request like this. It would be, somebody wants to put a megawatt here, they're also going to put a battery of a certain size, and those batteries would be counted toward the goal. I don't know, Brian, did you want to add anything to that?
Anything else from the unmuted?
Brian,
Oh.
Brian.
Yep.
Brian?
Brian.
Well, that's.
Yes,
the member
I
of the
can't
Finance
undo the video. I can't show my video, but yeah, the light board, even though there is a goal of 60 megawatts, we wouldn't do that unless it was favorable to the ratepayers. So we wouldn't go ahead and build batteries that are unnecessary if just to meet some goal that was stated. The idea of 60 megawatts was done a few years ago. I believe Dave Wood came up with that target number, and it was based on the amount of solar that we have as plans to put in town. So it would only be batteries if it was favorable to ratepayers. Does that answer it, Carmen or Carlin?
Okay, any other questions from the Finance Committee?
We'll go down the line. Suresh, any questions? Peggy? Dee?
I have one question. On one of your slides, you said there's one inverter replacement in year 10.
Yes.
Would you please briefly describe what that is and then also the cost?
Sure. So an inverter is, solar and batteries, they deal in DC or direct current, and power on the grid travels in AC or alternating current. So the inverter is flipping the DC to the AC and vice versa, so that when we discharge and charge the battery, it can speak compatible power language with whatever system it's talking to. I can look to see what the model shows for that. That was in year 10. Inverter, yep, inverter replacement. What is the cost of the inverter? I'm seeing $80,000. Let me just see here. Brian, if you're looking at the model, it's row 23, but I can't see the exact price. I can't tell if it's amortized over those first 10 years or...
Yeah, so I don't have the number in front of me, but they are very expensive. We're usually hundreds of thousands because these are, megawatts of power they're inverting. So they're not the bulk of the battery cost. They're under $1 million, but they are significant. And those are in the model, amortized over the life of the system.
I did find it. It's $683,000 is what it's projected to be, and it's basically treated like depreciation, where each year for the first 10 years we're putting aside some money until the last year when it's replaced, and then it drops off.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jason, thanks for the presentation. I have a question about process, and I'm not sure whether this is for you or for Brian, but I don't really understand the process here, and I want to make sure I do. So we had a task force who came forward with a recommendation, and then there was some back and forth as to whether that was going to work and whether they could find siting for solar, which they could not get agreement on. And then there was, we're going to change the article so that now it's a battery, and now it's gone back to the light board, and they've said, well, now we want a bigger battery. So my question is, my expectation would be, for something like this, management would have a plan, right? And it sounds like your plan at the light plant, and I understand you're new, so that's why I said maybe Brian would answer this. The plan was to do, what do you call it, metering domain, and that's something that would be several years away. So I'm just trying to understand, and I think that CMLP board voted for this.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we going like this, and are we sure? Have we spent enough time to know this is the right answer? Why wouldn't we wait for 2 years for metering domain? Why is this, what's the rush? I guess that's my basic question.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to a little of that, and then Brian can weigh in, but I think that, first of all, the metering domain and the battery, we feel like go in conjunction with each other, kind of a belt and suspenders approach, to use Dinos' term. We feel like they're going to be complementary. The battery's going to save ratepayer money. The metering domain, remember, when we push electricity off, we're going to be pushing it when everybody else is pushing it off, and we're likely going to have to pay to get rid of that electricity, because that's when every other municipality and every other solar farm is producing tons of electricity. So the metering domain is a less capitally intensive project, but in the long run, it doesn't make ratepayers really any money because of our load profile in Concord and our goals of adding more solar. So the battery is going to be more favorable to ratepayers, and I'll say that the battery has been on the strategic plan since at least 2017 for CMLP. It's just been, the AMS project for advanced metering took longer than expected, and so I think it shifted some priorities down, and so we're about 42% of the way installed for the advanced meters, and that project should wrap up residentially by the end of the year. But I think that this has always been on the radar, but I thank you for pointing out the process, because it was probably a little unusual. I think the reason that we kicked into gear was because of the closure of MCI Concord, and knowing that we thought we had a little bit more time than maybe we did originally once we found out that load was going to drop off.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the Finance Committee?
I do have a question, but maybe we could come back to me and go to the members online. Dawn?
Hi, thank you, and I apologize, I don't have much of a voice. My question is, I can understand the logic of putting batteries with solar panels because it's direct current and you don't have to, but when you are locating batteries on the grid, you're converting AC to DC and then back to AC, and there's a step function loss at each time, is there not? And so does it really make sense or have you taken that loss into consideration, that it's double the loss if we aren't directly storing from the solar panels?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are planning, our number one site to put the battery is at the W.R. Grace solar site. So it would actually be taking solar in DC directly going into the batteries, so it wouldn't be converted. It would only be converted when it goes onto the grid. But that's a great question. You do recognize a loss in efficiency when you convert from AC to DC.
And we have enough, so does that mean we'd have to dedicate our W.R. Grace generation to filling the batteries?
Nope, so...
And then
sorry, go ahead.
discharge the batteries at night when power is cheap? Is that how this works?
So generally, let's say for a shoulder month, like a day like today, we would be using the battery to charge. We would make sure the battery was empty as that solar ramped up. So we'd be discharging it, most likely in the morning, and then we would absorb all that solar, and then we would release that battery in the evening when the load, comes up higher and the solar goes down, so that it would, instead of the duck curve that you're used to, it would be a much flatter curve throughout the day. Then in the other times of the month, in order to hit the peak, the battery could be used once or twice a day to make sure that basically the power load is more even. We charge the battery when energy rates are low or when we have excess solar, and we discharge the battery when energy rates are high, and we can use that energy that we've saved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the select board?
The FinCom isn't finished.
Let me just check in. Lois, online, any questions?
No other questions.
Okay. All right. My question is on the rate impact on slide 10. It shows significant savings in the out years. There's a small bubble in year one, and then the savings are quite significant. Do you expect the town and the schools as ratepayers to enjoy the same savings?
Yeah, so the money for SAMLP that comes in is, it lowers rates in general, so yes.
And have you done any modeling on the actual dollars, how many dollars they'd save?
Yeah, the yellow chart on that slide shows the actual dollars of an average customer. Obviously, you'd have to multiply that for the very, very large customers. But the light board is the group that's setting rates and tariffs. So, it would be up to them to, if you start looking at new revenue or changes to the economics, to consider changing rates. But in today's rates, you could basically multiply this. This is 883 kilowatts. So if you have 10 times the load, you're going to see 10 times the savings in this.
Thanks.
Anybody else on the finance committee?
I have one more thing, and then
Yeah. Chris?
Just from a degree of difficulty, right? So one project manager to another, right? So how hard a hill is this to climb? If you look at the level of assumptions that are in there, the capacity of the staff at the light plant, which I think has been stretched fairly recently, what's the degree of difficulty on getting it done and achieving the savings?
So I would say that this project would be much easier than, say, the middle school building project, where we have construction going on with critical pathways and us trying to insert a project into that, as opposed to a site that's been mostly dormant. We rely heavily on third parties, and the estimates include, utilizing help for preparing for RFPs and actually preparing the site. We'd be doing some of the work, but a lot of the work that we could be doing to farm out, we'd be doing, so that we can move as quickly as possible. But we would obviously rely on our in-house talent of our engineers and line crew, but for the actual construction and all of that, we'd be delegating this to a third party.
So you think this is achievable?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah. Can I borrow this?
Sure.
Or I want
Good
to.
one.
Yeah, good, thank you.
It'll make your voice deeper.
It will. Thank you, Jason. I actually support this because I know that there are several businesses in West Concord that were unable to install solar canopies, actually, because of solar saturation. So I think this is the right way to go. But I do have a question about the cash flows. I see that your NPV calculations looked at the worst case as far as the borrowing rate and the discount rate, that you went as high as 12% for the discount rate. But there's another risk to this, which is the number of years that it goes out. So 20 years is a long time, especially in this kind of technology. And I noticed that your cash flows go positive in year 15, right? So I mean, not go positive, they're positive much earlier than that, but they
Right, they
spike.
jump.
They spike in year 15. So I guess my question is, what if in year 15, for example, you find out that either the metering domain is a less expensive option, or this particular technology goes obsolete faster than you thought, and you're right before that time when cash flows look really good, what's the NPV?
So what we did was we said if years 11 through 20 went away for revenue, the NPV was 640,000 positive. With the
640.
worst,
At 12%?
With 12% discount rate and 4% borrowing.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And I'll just point out that the Solar Implementation Task Force voted unanimously to support this article, and then the Light Board voted unanimously to support the article.
That's right, thank you.
So if I'm understanding correctly, if we have the battery, the CMLP as a network, as a system, can push back solar onto the national whole grid, or a regional grid, or whatever it is. No.
No, the battery just takes our own solar and allows us to discharge that to our people when there's no solar.
Oh, so we're not selling back to the grid?
Eventually, but not.
Eventually.
Yeah, yep.
That's metering domain.
That's what you're talking about with the SCADA system in
Yep.
a few years? Okay. So at that point, is that when individual residences or businesses that have solar on their roofs, will they also be able to sell back electricity at that point?
So they're eligible for net metering today, and so they're getting money for their electricity today. And the Light Board, sets those rates and those tariffs. So, do you mean sell them outside of Concord?
I think so, because I think the net metering today it's very, very small. I mean, you can do it in your own house, but you can't sell it back to the system.
Yeah, I mean, Brian can weigh in, but if you generate more power than your house is using, it's going onto the grid, and your neighbors are using it today. Brian, do you want to speak to the rate today for net metering?
But
Yeah. So any customer that interconnects with CMLP can utilize net metering with their array. So they can share power, get credits for that, and take power when they need it back. The metering domain is when Concord Light is sending power back to Acton and to Eversource. That is something that was our long-term plan, was to do this, but the closure of MCI kind of forced up the belt and suspenders plan, where we have a battery to be able to continue to add solar before metering domain, but when we get metering domain, we can add a lot more solar. And the thing the battery does that metering domain does not is it lowers rates by discharging into times of peak expense, reducing those expenses. So the battery is quite valuable and would be done anyway. It has been on our strategic plan for quite a while. But it's simply the MCI closure that moved things up to deal with the resilience problem and protect our transformer.
I have a question. Yeah, thank you, Jason. You have a lot of information to impart in a short amount of time, and some of the slides are pretty dense, I must say, and you're a fast speaker, so it's going to be a challenge for some people to follow this. I'd like you to go back to slide number 2, if you don't mind, and I might have missed this, where it shows the slide that talks about transforms and bus bars.
Yep.
Did you define those terms? I might have missed it.
Yeah, so
Yeah, you go ahead and define it, but
Yeah,
it might be helpful if you do define it
Yes.
in the presentation.
That's good feedback. So a transformer is a device that's stepping down power. So regionally, we get power at a much higher voltage than we accommodate on our local distribution network here in Concord. So this very high voltage is coming into our substation, and then we run it through a transformer so that it's at a lower voltage, and then it goes through all the city streets and then to smaller transformers that go to your house.
And the bus bars?
The bus bar is a physical bar that's connected to the transformer that you can tap power off of. So you connect something to the bus bar, a switch, a relay, or something else, and then you can achieve power from it. You have bus bars in your circuit breakers in your house. So when you open your circuit breaker, that's how you get power from the 2 original wires that come into your house.
Thank you. I do think that will be helpful. Even if it's a shorter version of that, I think it'll be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could just add, I agree with Linda. If you need to get more time from the moderator, it might be helpful because that slide in particular was really dense and you can't really read the graph, and it would be good to spend a little more time on it.
So I have a couple of suggestions on
Sure.
it. So if you can put page 2 back up there, that was where I was going to go. So to build a little bit on what Jason was talking about, the blue section on the map of Concord is everything that's on one bus bar, and the green section is everything that's on the other bus bar. The risk to the grid is the part of that chart that's on the right, and I'm going to make a plea for bolder lines on that. And I think for a large number of people, the differentiation between the green and the blue is nearly impossible there, so it might be worth working on there. But let's walk through that slowly so that people reading here really understand it. So the one that's oddly shaped, it's not very regular at all, that's the actual demand that's experienced on that bus. In other words, that's how much power we're asking the grid to give the town through that side of our community. And the x-axis on this, again, I would make a plea for bolder, that's time of day. So this chart starts at midnight and goes to midnight, and the middle section is noontime, when the sun is up. And so what we're seeing is when solar comes on, the amount of power that we're drawing from the grid drops to that minimum, which is the highest of the horizontal lines.
The green line.
And the point that's being made here, if I'm reading this correctly, and I'm going to ask you to stop me if I make a mistake, is that when MCI Concord is no longer drawing power, that minimum would have dropped to the middle of those horizontal lines, which is now something below 2 megawatts. And when Middlesex School puts their solar array on, it would drop again to just barely over 1. And the point that you're going to make when you do this is that 1 megawatts is as low as you can safely go without running extreme risk of having something just accidentally think something has gone horribly wrong. So another way to look at it is, and this might be another build, a battery of the kind that we're talking about could add load to the extent of 2 to 4 megawatts. In other words, about half the size of that orange could be chopped right off and go into the battery for a couple of hours. And therefore, moving the bottom of that squiggly curve up comfortably into the safe zone. That's the point of this project. Am I getting that?
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And we do have a chart of the battery and its impact on the curve, so we could absolutely.
I think that would be helpful. Maybe, displaying them one at a time, peeling off those points. A couple of other questions that this brings to mind. Is it possible, or would it make any sense to move some customers from bus 1, the green section, to bus 2 permanently? Is that a practical solution or an alternative that you explored?
Yep, that's a good question. We have explored that. So when you move customers, which you can and has happened over time, it's a very lengthy process. So what you need to do is you need to take all the power protection devices that exist between the customers and the substation and reconfigure them. So we use a third party to do that. When we talk to that third party, we basically have to have them go out there, study the load profile, look at the total amount of demand that is downstream from that, and then recalibrate all the relays in between to make sure that they're not going to cause a problem, because you're essentially changing the amount of power that goes to a particular area. So it's a very lengthy and costly process, and not something that we want to do lightly, and also can't be done in some geographic areas. Some areas it's actually easy because maybe the line is right between two developments and it just peels off, but in other areas we just can't. We'd have to peel off too much, and so that would create the opposite problem on the other side. We've also understand that some of the projects that we're looking at for solar by the Solar Implementation Task Force are on that bus one side, like the CCHS High School, rooftop, or the swale, or the landfill. And so they're going to be creating the same solar saturation issues on bus one that we have on bus two today. So if we reconfigure now and then we add more solar, we're going to have to reconfigure again. And that's just a costly process. And each time you're looking at power going down, power in dangerous conditions for line workers. So ideally not something that we do lightly. But yes, if we knew like a big industrial complex that was going to generate 2 megawatts of solid load was going one place forever, then that might inform our decision. But knowing how fluid the solar issue is, where things pop up and suddenly somebody wants to add a megawatt of solar here or a megawatt there, we don't feel like right now any minor adjustments are going to actually help this in the long term.
Mm-hmm. So, thank you. From a switching perspective, I gather that the battery would be dedicated to one bus or the other. It wouldn't be switchable between the buses. Page 7, if you don't mind. The energy definition I found a little confusing there, and I just wanted to, so energy for most people is essentially the amount of electricity you can store and later give back. So the element of how long being included in that, the length of time over which a megawatt can be stored, didn't quite jive with my understanding of the definition of energy. A megawatt hour is a unit of energy. You could think gallons of gas in your tank. Right. Okay, so maybe just double check the wording on that.
Sure.
So the last question, what is the schedule and which would be the first shoulder season where this risk might be mitigated?
So we're pretty confident that even if this passes, we wouldn't hit this fall or next spring, but the goal would be potentially for the following fall of 2025.
Thank you. I saw Don Cooper has
Henry, thank you. I should have asked this sooner, but this is more of a suggestion in terms of the presentation. I think, Mark, I think you just asked for this, but that the graph with the low and the high and the solar, maybe with and without the battery.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
You
right.
just asked for that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that would be really helpful. And also, when I was on the light board, we got a tour of the facility up on Forest Ridge Road, and it was very impressive. A bus just doesn't sound like an electrical thing.
Right.
It sounds like an electric school bus, but a photo of in the substation with, a couple of individuals might be interesting for town meeting, that's all.
I think that leads into my question, which is, how big is that thing and where do you intend to put it, for starters?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we intend to put it at WR Grace at the solar site. If that doesn't work out, the substation...
Which is where?
Which is the site of the solar near the bus depot, near Knox Trail, right on the Acton line.
Mm-hmm.
And if that location doesn't work out, the substation at Forest Ridge would be a second location that we could put it at. But as the person asking the question online suggested, we then run the risk that if we try to charge the battery at a time where we have both solar and load from Eversource, that it could pull from Eversource, because power is indiscriminate. It looks for voltage. It doesn't necessarily say, oh, you want that power to go in the battery? Well, we'll use that instead. So that's why the WR Grace site over there by the bus depot would be a better location. And how big is it? So they usually come in containers, like shipping containers, like on the back of a truck, and you're looking at maybe 3 to 5 of those stacked in parallel on a concrete pad.
You mean like a container, like cargo containers, and there'd be about 3 of them. What's the technology? Is it lead acid, lithium, some other more sophisticated technology?
So the most common 2 for lithium ion are NMC and LFP. LFP has many more discharge cycles. In other words, like 3,000 to 5,000 discharge cycles before it loses a percentage of its energy. So that would be lithium iron phosphate. And it has no nickel or cadmium, which are some of those rare earth metals that people are concerned about.
What FP?
LFP, lithium iron phosphate.
Okay, lithium ion. And so that has many recharge cycles without being exhausted.
Right.
So the way the power comes out of the solar panels is as DC.
Correct.
And is that generally converted to AC at the site?
It goes DC, it can go DC right into the battery, ideally, right? Because every time you change from DC to AC, you have a loss of power. So ideally, it would go straight from the panels to the battery without being inverted to AC. But yes, once it's in the battery, it's DC, and when it's discharged, it's coming out as AC.
Okay, and is the, but if I put solar panels in my roof,
yep.
And the power comes out of them as DC,
yep.
Does it get converted?
Yes, right.
So there will
right
be there will be a rectifier or an
An
inverter,
inverter, yep.
at my site.
Exactly.
And it will go back into the AC grid, which is somehow synchronized with the 60 cycle
Yep.
cycles of the existing power.
Exactly.
And then it comes to the battery where it is then converted back to DC and then charges the battery, and when it comes out of the battery, it goes back into AC. And so what percentage of the energy is actually lost in those conversion processes?
I mean, the newer the inverter, the more efficient they are, right? They're getting better, but you might see 10 to 20% loss. It just depends on the inverter, the power, where it's coming from. If WR Grace is right there and has 4.5 megawatts of solar, your rooftop solar across town isn't going to charge the batteries. It's just not. Based on the loss for the line and how close the solar array is, the solar array is going to charge the batteries.
Okay. Thank you. Is there, yes, no, we can, I think we can open up to whatever questions we still have.
Thank you. This is one that's looking a little more forward-looking, and I'm really interested in your implementation strategy. Right now, we're only talking about the purchase of a battery for $10.4 million. So my question to you is, in implementing this, say in the next 1 to 10 years, what changes do you see in your third-party costs, your maintenance costs, and your personnel?
So when we buy the battery, we would be buying it with a guarantee for the number of years that we expect to run it. And so the battery manufacturer, whoever they use to guarantee the battery, would replace modules as needed if they were found to be deficient or lower than what they guarantee. The third party, I believe we modeled $30,000 a year with an annual increase of 2.5% for the managed services based on existing quotes that we got.
What did you say for the first year? How much?
$30,000.
$30,000, okay.
And that would come with a guarantee to hit a certain number of peaks based on their historical, value and based on our assumptions and our estimates of what we'd be looking to get from that battery dispatcher.
Okay, how about personnel?
So that, you mean for ongoing costs? So that would all be included in the maintenance, the warranty, and the battery dispatch services that we'd be paying for. So it's all in the model. We have insurance, managed services, and then, the cost for warranty and all that, which was on the assumption slide.
So could you just tell me what you anticipate in the personnel? How many, will you be needing more employees?
No, absolutely not. Nope.
No.
Nope. Once it's on, the third party's going to turn it on, turn it off, If a battery module dies, they'll get notified automatically, come out and replace it and let us know. You know, there might be times where we have to supervise some things like that. You know, they're going to go in a high voltage area without discharging the battery or making things safe. We want to make sure a line worker is around or something, but very ancillary, rare personnel needs.
So with this new battery, do you anticipate in the future, in the next 10 to 15 years, that you would be needing more batteries?
I think we would look at the demand of the solar. So we're hopeful that by taking this corrective action, and now that we require batteries at solar sites, that this problem won't get drastically worse overnight, like with the closure of MCI Concord. You know, the WR Grace site didn't have a battery. If it were built today, it would be required. So, you know, maybe it wouldn't have put us in the situation that we find ourselves in now. But, you know, I think that I agree with Brian. We're not just going to buy batteries just for the sake of buying batteries, because it does carry with it some risk because of the uncertainty for the future dispatching. If there are third parties that wish to finance this and only give us the benefit of some of their shared cost savings with none of the risk, then we might pursue that as well. But as long as we are maintaining the integrity of the grid first, then we'd be looking to do that in addition.
Thank you.
Isn't there a significant fire hazard connected with the lithium content of the batteries? And have you talked to the fire department about how you would deal with the potential hazard of either a fire or explosion or the leakage of the of materials from the batteries?
Yep, so technically speaking, lithium iron phosphate batteries are very safe in terms of their durability and likelihood to explode or catch fire. But you're right that once they catch on fire, they're very difficult to extinguish, such that if you have an electric car, they make fire blankets that you can put over the car to kind of just let it burn. There's no real good way to put that out. So yes, we'd be working with the fire department and utilizing the latest in the recommendations for the fire protection code to make sure that we have all the fire suppressant systems that we can possibly have inside. All the containers have those systems in there, whether they're carbon dioxide or other mechanisms to either slow or stop any potential electrical fires that are in there, and to contain it and make sure that we have adequate fire fighting hoses and pumps and water in a nearby area.
So are these located, would they be located inside a building with other equipment, or they be outside?
They'd just be those containers on a concrete pad outdoors.
And isolated from each other so that if there was a fire problem, it would not spread from one to the other, right?
The engineer is not dissimilar from the Forest Ridge substation today, which has large transformers on pads and everything separated with and of course this is an industrial area that people are restricted from.
Well, are we talking about putting a 40B 200 units of housing up there on Forest Ridge?
Not at the substation.
But adjacent to it, isn't it?
I mean, it's across the street. It's actually far closer to the Prescott now than the 40B is going to be further away than the Prescott is today from that substation.
Okay.
If it goes in.
Okay. And now, are we have all the questions from the two boards? Peggy?
I have one final question. So this is a substantial investment in the plant equipment. So I assume that will increase the pilot payment to the town of Concord quite a bit?
I can't comment on that today.
Why not?
I mean, the town manager historically has created the formula for figuring that out, and I'm sure that it would, whatever impact it has on the capital assets, it would follow the same formula. And if it does, it does. But I haven't in the past calculated the formula. So.
And Henry, I still have a question. This is Don Capital.
Yes, Don?
Yep. My question is, if we return to slide 2, It's a very useful slide. When we were filling the battery during daylight hours, that means that we are consuming more from the grid during those hours than we would if we weren't filling the battery with that power. And do those hours also coincide with peak rates? In other words, aren't we actually consuming more power during peak rate period of the day, and then discharging the battery when rates are lower? Or maybe it would be useful to me, maybe the question I should have asked is, what hours of the day are purchase power rates the highest, and which hours are they the lowest?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you look at that slide in the upper right-hand corner of the, I'm not sure what color it is, the blue line that shows the load, when you see that peak, that's roughly the peak time when power prices are the most expensive, because the solar, the vast solar that's on the ISO is not generating any power anymore. People are coming home, they're turning on their air conditioners, they're turning on their televisions and everything else. So that's usually when we see the heaviest load and the most expensive electricity. And that's when we'd be discharging the battery that we charged with that solar in the middle. So we would not be expecting that the power that we'd be using to charge the battery would be more expensive. Now, again, if we were not in a situation where load was dangerously low, we would not necessarily need to charge it during that peak. It's only in those shoulder months that we are really super concerned with making sure that the load of solar does not go too high and the demand does not go too low. So we have some flexibility about 8 months of the year to charge and discharge the battery really any time of the day. It's just in those shoulder months and on sunny days where we'd really look to capture that solar peak in the battery.
I see. So the price we pay to the grid is to the network isn't it's totally a function of the of our own peak demand, not also a function of time of day. Is that right?
It's not necessarily time of day, and it's not just our peak, it's the entire ISO peak.
Right.
You know, our peak matters.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, exactly.
And is that ISO peak during the time when we're generating solar?
Nope.
No? Okay. Thanks.
All right, do we, if both boards are satisfied, at least for the moment, we can always come back to you. Are there any people here in the hall who would have questions or comments on on this project?
Hello. Great. So thank you. Yeah, Cameron McKenna here. Thanks for the analysis. I just
Could you identify yourself, please? Or
sorry, Cameron McKenna.
Thank you.
Not Meadow Crossing, Concord, Mass. So just a couple of questions or things that I would love to sort of hear more about or learn more about, maybe not in the next 10 minutes, but so just some perspective on the financial case. I actually don't think it's conservative at all. So, I mean, I work at National Grid. I would tell you that your base case would probably get laughed out of the room. I think the conservative case that you have would probably be a base case because, 10 years, right? A lot changes over more than 10 years. But also just, it seems like there's an assumption that if all goes according to plan, right? And there's often contingencies. Things can take longer. Construction costs can be higher. So I would just urge us to consider like what the contingencies are and, a real sort of honest, cold-eyed assumptions as to what the financial returns would be. I think also just around the need and just understanding when you say like, hey, we're gonna get to uncomfortable levels, like what does that really mean? Because I hear all the time from our operators, like we're gonna run out of gas, we're gonna run out of electricity, and we have to do the analysis to really sort of show and understand what the levels are. So I think it's just helpful to really sort of, because if you're going to do something here and it's not going to take effect till the fall of 2025, I mean, even then there's, right, a time frame there where you're not going to have this, right? So how close are we to, right, like what the real sort of challenge might be? And I think just maybe also looking at some of the other options. So I know you mentioned like a smaller battery. I don't know like, didn't see any of the financials around that, if that's a better or worse case, if that's something that's been looked at, or if there may be sort of other alternatives around something like that. You know, maybe another thing to look at, because $10.5 million is just, it's a lot of money, so.
Yeah, if you watch the League of Women Voters or the Solar Task Force videos in the presentation, some of those earlier presentations, we were kicking around the other battery sizes, and all the financial models are in there for the smaller batteries, so you can see what those look like.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mary Weinberg, Hillside Avenue. The first thing is, it'd be great if you had a map to show everybody. I've been here 45 years and I don't know the site you're talking about. So are you talking about across the street from the nuclear metal site on the way to Acton?
Do you know where Knox Trail is, where the bus depot is?
I don't know.
Okay.
All I know is Main Street going into Acton, where the ice skating rink is.
Yep.
Is that the area where Nuclear Metals was? Right, okay. But so it'd be good to have a map.
Yep.
And show exactly where the site is, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I never knew the site.
The article doesn't mention the site, just so you know, and so.
No, a map.
No, I know, but the article does not mention the site that the battery.
But everybody wants to know, I think. I'm just telling you, you're preparing for town meeting, and somebody's going to get up and say, well, we'd like to know where this is going to be. So, you know, we have a big planning department. They can draw a map and the road, Main Street, and mark things out so we who don't know what's there, like the ice skating rink, Nuclear Metals. And the second part is, it'd be good to have a picture of these modules, a drawing from maybe another town that used it, so we can see. And then again, the planning department can put it in so we can see what it's going to look like and how big. And the third thing is that you mentioned that this won't be a cost to the town, it will be a cost to the users, and I'm a user. So could you tell us, just like they did in the residential tax exemption, they gave examples of different categories of homes, and to show that if we did this, this is how much you would save or pay. Since we're all going to be users, and as we know, this town has super wealthy people, not so wealthy people, it would be really good to give different examples, take different bills and show. You can even use me as an example, like one person living alone, theirs, versus a $2 million house and the amount of energy they use, so we can clearly see, because everybody's going to ask how much this is going to cost, because we're the users. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
David Douglas. Two things. One, on slide 2, I don't think it's demand shown, which is what it's labeled. It's demand net solar, because otherwise demand would be going below your supply, which is clearly not. So that's was very confusing the first time I looked at it. The second thing was there was a mention of emissions savings in this, and I don't see where there would be any emissions benefits. In fact, it's probably a net emissions loser if you count the emissions required to make the batteries. So I was just curious. I saw it mentioned in the slide, but it was never brought up again. So I was just curious what the perspective was on that.
Yeah, the state has a goal for so many megawatt hours of or gigawatt hours of battery, because they recognize that having batteries on standby reduces the need for dirty peaker plants that run. These are diesel generators that run to provide power at high need times of the day. So when you're shaving peak load, what you're preventing is those peaker plants from running.
Okay, but in this case, I mean, that's pretty small amount. You're shifting from one time of day to a pretty near time. It's just not a very big difference, I suspect. This project by itself, I don't believe is a net emissions win. In fact, it's probably a minor emissions loss. So.
Dinos Gonatas at 260 Old Marlborough Road. And first of all, thanks, Jason, for your presentation and also for being generous with your time to talk to me and along with your team. I had one question. You mentioned that here you'd be using a third-party company to do this dispatching, and then also in your presentation said you wouldn't be using a third party to build it, so I was a little confused about that apparent contradiction.
That we would say the second part again?
That you would not use a third party to build it.
We would be using a third party to build
Okay.
it. But we're not going to build the battery ourselves.
Right, okay, that's what you meant by that. I
Right.
understand. Okay, and so another thing, I guess it's a little repetitive with what Cameron said, but it's a fact that there are risks in this project, and there are risks having to do with getting the dispatch right, especially over time as the power grid changes and there's more batteries and the peak gets spread out more. So there's also potentially regulatory risk if the tariffs changes. So that's why it makes a lot of sense to have a 10 to 14% discount rate to look at the NPVs. So I think it would be inaccurate to present a model as a base case and say, this is a 3.5% discount rate, which is honestly what was done to justify the middle school solar and storage project, which made the financials look good artificially. With respect to the dispatch, though, is one of the risks. You'd said earlier that you were reluctant to do that because a third party would not take into consideration the fact that we've got these operational constraints with the feeders. And it sounds like you've either had successful discussions with them or you've changed your mind. So what's your view there?
So our view is that everybody that we approached did not build batteries with the priorities that we needed to keep the grid stable. So they have thought and said, this is an interesting use case. We do think that this is something that people are going to be asking for, so we might be willing to spend some time to think it through and see if it's possible. And if it is, what would we be charging you to use the battery during these times? And is that something we could do? So if it is, and if it can achieve all of our goals and there's no risk, then we would not recommend to the Light Board that we move forward with this project to borrow the money.
Can you just say that again? Again, if you can find these third parties that are willing to manage it, you don't need the money, is that what you're saying?
Nope. So if we find a third party that's willing to put the upfront capital for the battery for their own financial gain and allow us to use the battery when we need it to make sure that the grid is stable, then we would pursue that avenue if it was more favorable to ratepayers.
Okay, I think that's a really helpful observation because it limits the risk to the town and the light plant quite a bit. And again, there's lots of bad things that can happen over time, and that's why my clients that do these projects factor in reductions in revenue over time and don't have these incredible scenarios with these big NPVs in proportion to the investments that are made. So another aspect that is worth mentioning, and you didn't quite get into the level of detail because it's an engineering detail, but what your engineering manager, Joe, said is that the reason we have this emergency now when the currents get low is we have these relays that have to arm with a certain critical amount of power to go through them. Otherwise, they won't trip, just like the GFIs in your kitchen or bathroom sink. They have to be armed, but then they're not armed if they don't have enough current going through. But he said that there's currently a program going on to upgrade those old mechanical devices with solid-state devices that wouldn't have this problem, and that would be complete by the fall of 2025. And presumably, maybe it's something that could even be accelerated. And that would then make the battery sort of belt and suspenders with the upgraded breakers as far as protecting us from this current problem that we have especially with the MCI Concord loss. Is that, do you want to amplify on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll just say that I showed one potential customer adding solar. We have many who have responded to add solar. So even if we could get below the 1 megawatt level with the solid state relays, we couldn't go negative until we set up the metering domain, which has unknown costs and unknown timeline. As for expediting things, I don't think with the middle school solar project going on that that's possible because of the staff time that it takes. This is not just hiring a third party to buy a battery and build it. It's a lot of engineering time and a lot of people who know the current system that would have to peel away from other projects. So I don't feel like that could ramp up any faster than it's already planning to be done.
So one of the things is, again, with projects is looking at all the pieces and trying to rejigger them. And one of the things that occurred to me is, especially with the middle school storage and solar going forward, what if we use the battery for that? We don't have experience with batteries yet. And so it seems a little premature to double down on batteries until we've got some experience with them. And it seemed to me, well, what if we just took the middle school battery, put it at the W.R. Grace site, and then deferred the middle school solar for a while, or maybe put solar at the landfill where it's much more economical to build. I mean, that would be a much better project economically, and you would get experience with storage, but not like double or triple down before we know what we're doing and get experience. Anyway, that's my comment.
I have a follow-on question, not to Dino's, but just in my own head. We've heard some talk about base case financials. I didn't see base case financials presented. I saw worst case financials presented, assuming the highest borrowing cost, the highest discount rate, or reasonably high, a very high discount rate, without looking at a shorter term horizon. So I didn't really see a base case, right? What you showed as NPV was looking at worst case in 2 variables and kind of best case in the time variable. Is that accurate?
Yeah, with the exception that I mentioned, that we did run loss of revenue in years 11 through 20, and
That's
that was
right.
still positive.
So that would be the real worst case.
Right.
You know, and even that is a positive number. So I'm just responding to the base case.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to address is, yeah, I think people are going to be interested in what is the change to their rates. And people often see that as, well, you're just taking taxes out of a different pocket, right? So I think it would be helpful to remind people that this is a service that other communities pay Eversource or National Grid. And if I'm not badly mistaken, our rates are very reasonable compared to what a resident would pay for the same size house, same usage in another community. And
Yes.
you have that information.
We do, yep.
Okay, so I think it'd be helpful for people to just understand that. So not only are we talking about saving money, but the place we're starting from is already lower than most communities.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barry.
And
Mark?
just another point, this article, as it's presented here, is a borrowing authorization, which doesn't actually involve the expenditure of funds yet. It just authorizes that the light plant can go shopping at this level. And I note that the authorization is the town treasurer with approval of the select board. So I think that this is one of those cases where until this authorization is made, the light plant is actually doesn't have the resources to necessarily finalize all of the details of the project. I'm encouraged to hear that there are alternatives also being worked on to help address this problem. As noted in the presentation, this has been a long time coming, and some of us who've been watching this for a while would say that it's about time that real effort was made to do this, because the solar saturation issue is a real issue. So metering domain changes to the relays and switches, as well as battery storage projects that have some hope of helping to address this, I think is a matter of having a portfolio of alternatives that are going to fix this. So I was just going to point out that as a borrowing authorization, this is an opportunity. This gets the ball rolling, but it's certainly not the last stop on the train in terms of making this project actually go forward, and I think there's time for some of those other details to be really ironed out and make sure we know what we're buying.
Well,
because it's an up to.
Yep. I think this is a really very good conversation, and I wish we subjected every $10 million that we spent with this amount of scrutiny. Stefan, are you still there? Your yellow hand's stuck on the screen.
No, I'm still here, and my question is, if I heard all the discussions correctly, this would not be operational until the fall of 2025. And so I guess my question is, I think MCI will still be drawing some current in the fall this year, because even if the prisoners aren't there, they won't shut everything down right away. But when we get to this period of time next spring, should we just hope for cloudy days, or Are we just hoping that we can skate through next spring's dangerous weeks?
Cloudy days and turn all your lights on, that would be best.
I think,
No, I mean, we'll closely watch the demand and the solar load that we have. And, you know, if we have to break a contract or do something profound to save the town from going dark or having transformers blow up, we'll figure that out. But we're trying to avoid getting into that situation. You know, the town entrusts the light plant to operate the plant and make sure that clean, reliable power is provided, and that's what we'll do.
Good, thank you. Chris, yeah? No.
Chris, we can't hear you.
Sorry. If ROI was not a factor, and you wanted to simply address this issue of the integrity of the grid, would you buy this size battery, or would you buy something much smaller?
If the town continues to march forward building in-town solar, we'd advocate for this size battery.
Thank you.
I think, are we done? You know how I feel about meetings that run past 8:30. So if we're ready to close the hearing.
Yeah, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Do you want to?
I think we need a separate motion, right?
Yes, you do. Yes.
Can I get a motion from the Finance Committee to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Well,
All right, thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
We do need a roll call. The Finance Committee needs a
Okay,
roll
do
call
your
because we have members
roll
online. Yes.
Well, if you have remote people, well, everybody is not here, I think.
All right, Suresh. Peggy. Peggy Kukula is not here. Eric.
Aye.
Dee, we can't hear you. Can you speak into the mic? Thank you.
Okay, Greg, not here. Don.
Aye.
Lindsay. Dee, yes. Carlin? Christine?
Yes.
And that's Lois?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone.